to the music scene, showing lots of love for the community. With great advice, I know who I should go see. So all around town radio show is where I go for the latest planned info. So there's the
All right, good afternoon. Welcome to a nooner here at All Around Town Radio, everybody. We are live from the studio here in beautiful downtown Springboro, Ohio. Welcome to the program today. We are going to kick it up here with Wednesday with the band. And without any further, I'm going to introduce my musical guest today, Mr. Billy McCarthy from the Billy Rock Band. How are you, Billy?
I'm great, Scott. How you doing?
Man, it's so good to have you on the show. I have been a fan for a long time, and it's good to have you here to chat a little bit here at noon today.
Yeah, I really appreciate the invitation, Scott.
Well, it's going to be a good one. We're going to talk here about Billy's history a little bit. We're going to talk about the Billy Rock Band and some other projects he's involved in today as we move through this half hour of a lunchtime edition of All Around Town Radio. So, Billy, let's get started. Let's talk about your musical history, man. You've been doing this a while.
I have, and at the tender age of 54, I think I've racked up about 35 years now. So it's been a great process, and I'm just so grateful to be able to still be doing music and hopefully thriving at it.
Well, what got you started in the music business? I mean, what kind of gave you the bug?
You know, I can remember receiving a drum set, a Mickey Mouse drum set for my 5th birthday, which I almost immediately destroyed and upgraded to the Sterling Beat drum set. But music was always a part of my family. My grandmother and great aunts were the Burke sisters, which now I'm going back, but if you remember acts like the Andrews Sisters and, you know, this idea of 3 women in evening gowns with a big band behind them singing classics, that's what they did. And they toured by train at that time. And they were, you know, they played Radio City Music Hall, the Orpheum in Memphis, St. Louis, Chicago. And so the bug was there. And of course, along with all our family gatherings, there was always someone singing into a hairbrush or someone up on the fireplace there doing a show. So it was the precedent was set early. And so from there, you know, like most musicians, at some point you grab a few other people and someone's garage becomes, you know, your rehearsal space or someone's basement, which was often mine. And it grew from there, and, you know, through high school and college, continued to play in bands and eventually got involved in a lot of studio work, which helped me meet even more artists and record on albums. So it's been, you know, like I said, it's been, I'm so fortunate, you know, I've had a great musical journey, and I'm looking forward to the things ahead.
Well, yeah, and it sounds like a great journey already, but you're doing great things, and we're going to get into that here. I do want to know, though, if you remember the first time you ever took the stage somewhere, and how'd you feel, and when was that, if you can remember it?
Well, to answer the latter part first, I was terrified.
No doubt.
And it was I would say for the first large performance I ever did was in 8th grade at our talent show in front of the entire school in our gym. And
that's worse than anything right there.
Oh my word. It was
in front of your own kids and peers and all. Oh my God.
Yeah. There was a few hundred there that were patiently waiting to hear our horrible version of Back in Black. We covered an AC/DC tune. But, you know, as terrifying as it is, it's also, you know, thrilling. So it's kind of like the salty and the sweet.
I got you. Yeah. Well, I want to say hi to some folks joining us here on the live today. Kara, thank you for being here. Angela, Chad is in the house. We're going to talk about Chad later on. Stephen Bell from Don't Tell Steve. Brad Hopper in the house. Gina McCann, the lovely Gina McCann.
So
and
talented.
Bill. Thank you, Bill, for being here as well. Bill Allred, thanks for joining. He said he loves Billy McCarthy as well.
I love them back.
Got a lot of fans on here right now. And if you're watching after we're live, guys, Billy's going to share this to his page. I'll have it on mine. Drop a comment, drop a question if you have it for Billy. He'd be glad to answer them for you. And that's what we're here for, is to learn a little bit more about him. So I'm going to say singing drummer. That takes a special person. And I have attempted at one time or another in my life, and I don't play drums well, but I've sat at a drum kit and tried to play drums and sing at the same time. It was an absolute train wreck because my mind just couldn't do it. How do you do this, man? It's crazy.
You know, the shortest answer and the quickest answer is muscle memory. You know, I don't have any gifted talent with, you know, this is blood, sweat, and tears, you know, years of refining it and hours spent behind the kit singing, you know. So to anybody out there that looks at that and thinks, well, how can I do that? It's really just applying yourself, you know, because like I said, I don't have any special gift. I just work hard at it. And eventually you get to a point where the thinking about it while you're doing it starts to dissipate and that muscle memory kicks in. So I don't have to think about every fill or every beat that I'm playing or what all my limbs are doing while I'm singing. Now, I will say this, the tricky part is particularly, and guitarists may speak to this too, that also sing. You're really kind of dividing your skill sets, right? You know, if you only had to focus on one thing, you could really put 100% of your effort into that. So when you're singing and playing an instrument, the beat doesn't always coincide with the melodic prosody of the song. So there are a lot of times when you feel like you kind of got to pat your head and rub your stomach in order to kind of separate those two skills while still combining them while you're performing. But, you know, again, not to beat a dead horse, but really it's a matter of applying yourself and putting in the time to do it so that you can get to a point where you don't have to think so much while you're doing it.
Yeah, it seems to me like almost you're dividing your brain in half. I mean, half of your brain is playing the drums and half is singing. Because when I did it once, like I said, I didn't do either one of them well, and I gave up. I was like, that's never happening again. But you seem to have mastered it, and like you said, years of playing and all those things. That brain of yours must be trained, the muscle memory in the brain to say, hey, you know, this side's worrying about where my hands are going. The other side's worrying about the vocals and the words and remembering all those songs you sing.
Right.
Because you're not playing a teleprompter or anything. You're playing those songs. You know those songs.
Right. Yeah. And, you know, there is something to be said about getting out of your own way while you're doing it too. You know, the idea is you want to be able to give an excellent performance in each of those categories, you know, and for me, people listening to songs often their memories triggered, I think, more by the lyrics and the vocals. Now there are trademarked guitar riffs and hooks and choruses that people attach to, but the vocal performance for me is so important because that's what people sing to.
Right. And let's talk about that for just a minute. Let's talk about the genre you have chosen for the Billy Rock Band, because it is not one that a lot of people are doing out there still today. And we talked a little bit prior to the show about that. I'd love for you to say what you said to me. You said, you know, something to the effect of keeping those songs alive, and people love those songs, and the people of our era that love those songs. So maybe you can hit on that a little bit.
Sure. You know, it boils down to that decade of music, 1970 to 1980, was they were my childhood years. And I have such great memories of growing up and the songs that were hits, in different years during that decade. And I was committed to keeping that decade of music alive, along with the artists, that made those songs so memorable for all of us. And we have reached a point where most of those artists now are, 20 years my senior, and we've lost a lot of them. And many of the others are either out of the industry or unable to perform at that level anymore. So I kind of feel like it's a torch being passed. And given that I'm, 54 now, that demographic that I was looking for, I was able to find over a matter of time. And I was concerned that I wouldn't be able to inspire them or get them out to shows, but I'm finding that that age group are very excited to go out. A lot of them are empty nesters or back out on the scene after a divorce, or there could be a number of situations, or just couples that are ready to come back out into the social scene and want to see great music. I should say this too: the amount of talent in our town is truly inspiring. I'm in the company of people that I admire constantly here in our greater Cincinnati music scene. And as well as I do, Scott, you can go out any night of the week in our town and see world-class performances and just amazing talent from all the local bands and artists in Cincinnati.
Yeah, no truer words there. And I always tell people I put the Cincinnati metro market up against anyone in the nation, because the music here is phenomenal. And like you said, you've got so many choices, and that's the part that really, for you guys, I see when you say you're going to play, people are there. I mean, they're choosing you, so there's a reason for that. And the other side of it is you've got a 3-piece band that has such a large sound. I've been there. I've heard it's like if I close my eyes, I'm thinking, this should be a 5-6-piece band on stage the way it sounds. How do you get that out of 3 guys on stage?
I'm so fortunate to be sidled by 2 amazing musicians. Alex Lush, who plays bass with us, but is also a guitarist and a world-class A1 sound engineer, is so good at harnessing our sound. And originally, my first bass player was Chris Hooks, who was also an excellent sound engineer. And those guys, I give them credit for helping to shape the sound that we have. And Christian Robles was a Berklee student at the prestigious School of Music. He went there with John Mayer, Alicia Keys, Nora Jones, and countless others. And I would consider him part of the 2%ers club. He is a phenomenal guitarist, and almost surgical in his approach, and is so good. So there's really nothing that I throw at them that they can't handle. They're just insanely talented. So I'm very, very, very lucky to have both of them.
Absolutely. And like I said, it's a huge sound that you guys produce. And what you said there really rang true to me, because I wish every musician in a band could take lessons from someone who's a sound engineer and learn that side of the business, because so many people step on stage and, you've seen all of it with I need more monitor, I need more this, and they turn their guitar to 11 and don't realize what that does to your mix out in the audience. And
right,
you guys have it spot on, whether you're using Chad as your sound guy for the night, or you have a bigger stage and you have some other companies, whatever it is, you seem to have it dialed in on stage and don't produce that stage volume. Even you playing the drums, it's not overpowering like some drum kits are in a room. And that I'm sure that took a lot of time to master that for you guys.
Yeah, and again, it is a skill set that you can only achieve with someone who is really good at sound production. Our goal from the beginning, especially when I was playing tiny bars, I would have, a dinner table 4 feet away from my kick drum. So you have to play to the room. And our goal from the beginning was low volume, full fidelity. When I was younger, it was all about turning it up to 11 and making a lot of noise. And so many of the clubs that I've played, and even still, you have to remember that people are there to see you and enjoy the music, but they don't want to have to compromise having conversations or having a nice meal with the song as an enhancement and not necessarily something that is commanding every moment of their attention. So we try to find the balance there between, being sounding like a decent stereo that can be turned up or down, but still have that full fidelity.
And I think your song choices too make a big difference in what you do. And, we were hitting on that a little bit, the genre, but, a lot of those songs that you play were designed for that purpose alone. I think to be played on that hi-fi stereo that if you wanted to crank it up, you could, but for most people, they were just sitting back in a chair, easy listening to these songs and listening to the lyrics and, picking it apart and doing all that. That's a cool part about your band. And you playing drums, like we said, out on that kit, being a front man is a whole different vibe than most bands that you go see, which I think is also an attraction for you guys. And you're just a package, man. And you're getting so much love on here today. Everybody shouting you out in the comments and everything else. You got a lot of fans out there, or friends. I hate the word fan, but you have a ton of friends. Everybody I talk to loves Billy and Billy Rock Band.
Well, I love them back, and it can't be done without them. You can be talented, you can be prolific in what you do, but if you don't have that network and support of friends that take time out of their evening to come see you, shake your hand, listen to a few songs, that is 100% of the fuel for the engine. Without them, we're nothing. And I say it a lot on stage, but I sincerely mean it. We are so grateful and appreciative to have the support of our friends and the music community here in Cincinnati. And I know that a lot of my friends that play can also say that, because we're not just surviving in Cincinnati's music scene, we're thriving. And as you briefly mentioned earlier, unique to Cincinnati, anyways, I think we have one of the strongest support systems and collection of great musicians anywhere in the country. And, I can say that not having been a Cincinnati native. I was a transplant to the city. I've lived 7 other cities, and, cities of comparable sizes do not have nearly the number of artist choices or support that I see here in Cincinnati. It is really unique and makes Cincinnati special. Northern Kentucky as well. Very much so. And Kevin Tolles, thanks for that great comment. He says, hard to find a nicer and more humble and such appreciative guy. Billy, I'm going to tell you, if I could put together, and I've been trying to put this together for several months now, a clinic for new musicians. There's so many people who send us questions and ask, what do we do? How do we break into the scene? How do we do that? You would be my keynote speaker, I think, for that event, because you have the right attitude with all this. And the appreciation for the folks who come out to see you, when you put that at the forefront of your show, you're going to be successful. I don't care what talent level you're at, because people appreciate you knowing they're there. And that's a big symbiotic relationship, so to speak. I mean, I think the crowd wants to be recognized, and
you know, when they come see you, they want to know that you acknowledge their presence. And man, you do that, and you do it so well. And Chris Reese is said love is a strong word. I love this band. I do. And I love what they do. How do you choose your set list? I want to move into that for just a minute. How do you choose your set list? And you said it changes from place to place depending on the room. So what do you just, you sit down and decide, or do you guys just have a songbook and you say, this is what we're doing tonight?
Yeah. You know, I have several set lists that I put together prior to a show. And it's tailored venue to venue. The one thing that I have not been able to put my finger on over the years is predicting the energy level of a room when I come into it. You know, typically our show kind of has a ramp up, or we don't come out and hit you in the face, you know, with anything heavy right out of the gate, because people are just getting there, catching up with friends, getting their first drink or two. And I try to read the room and see where the energy level is. And it's kind of like getting into warm water before you heat it up, right? And we don't want to shock anyone's system right out of the gate. So we try to get, you know, I can get into technical stuff about the noise floor and ramping up programmed music before we start to kind of acclimate people's ears. And again, with that, my focus is always on fidelity, not loud volume coming out of the gate. But as the night progresses, when I see bodies start standing up, that's when we can move into some of the dance stuff. And usually towards the end of the night, we hit them with some of the straight up rock stuff, you know, once people are amped up and ready for it. But that's usually, you know, my approach coming into a show. Now I'll say this, I put together set lists and then quickly realize that the energy of the room is at a higher level. So sometimes those songs that I've chosen for the first part of the show have to be pushed off because the crowd's ready. They're ready for that.
Yeah, I was going to ask about the audible calling there. If you call an audible every time you see something that you need to switch up or change, because so many bands have a set list, and man, it's like we cannot vary from our set list. We've got to play this next song, and sometimes you just know it's not going to work with the room that's there, or you're going to kill the energy. And
yeah,
you know, that's the part no bar owner wants, no band wants.
Right. And there is something to be said about. For a long time, and I'm sure a lot of other musicians can attest to this, we create, you know, you vacillate between what do I want to do, what songs do I want to present, and the balance of what is going to hit with audience members. So there have been times where I've played such a wide palette of music in one show. You're kind of you're trying to see what sticks, you know, throw it against the wall and see what sticks, as opposed to honing in a show and a brand with your name so that people have the option prior to coming to the show. I know that I can somewhat vet my audience. If you don't like that decade of music, you're probably not going to be interested in coming to the show, which is okay. But people deserve to be informed about what they're about to get into. And I think you also get higher quality audience isn't the right phrase, but you get somewhat of a pre-vetted audience that you know that you're playing to people that love Steely Dan or love Prince or love, you know, Al Green, Marvin Gaye, The Police, bands like that. And I from my perspective, it certainly makes the show more enjoyable as a performer when you know that you have people there that are already interested in those song choices, or at least that genre.
Well, and you just covered a little bit of what I was going to ask next, and that was to tell folks who might be watching the show either live or after the fact that what you play and some of the songs that you play. And you mentioned a bunch of artists there, but do you have a favorite group that you like to play at all?
Wow. You got me.
That's a tough one. It is, because you play so many. I mean, you do. You have such a good songbook.
I will say this, and this kind of makes me a hypocrite because this is 80s that I'm talking about, but we've been working on adding a lot of the Police to our show. I love, they're also a power trio, and they have so many iconic songs. In some ways, they're like the Beatles. They put out so many hits in such a short time. And I've kind of found another lane for us. As you mentioned earlier, and I think it's wonderful that we have so many tribute bands. It's such a great option for people that don't want to spend $400 on a ticket to see one of those bands that may only have one member left, and the tribute bands have really offered a solution. One that comes to mind that I absolutely love is the Eagles Project. Rick Kern and Greg and all those guys are just phenomenal musicians and do such a great job with that material. And when you experience that, you're like, this sounds fantastic. Why would I, go spend $400 or $500 on a ticket when we've got such amazing talent here? And it's not just me that thinks that. The response that these tribute bands get is exceptional. They're turning out thousands of people, not hundreds, for these tribute shows. And I love seeing that thrive. I think it's a wonderful thing. And again, it kind of pays homage to those artists, whether they're living or dead. It's keeping that music alive and introducing it to new audiences, maybe. And I think that's a really great thing for not just our local scene, but music in general.
Well, absolutely. We've got a few more minutes left. Let's switch gears for a minute. You're doing some other things, and I want to mention some of them. Let's talk about your company. It's called Mind Ignition, and what you do with that.
So we formed Mind Ignition around 2004. And this was myself, Robert Fugate, Alex Lush, and Tiffany Lush. There's 4 partners in the company. And for the most part, we were all musicians that moved into the audio production realm and then eventually multimedia. And Alex and Robert and I had been touring up until that time with an artist named Nathan Witt, who had enjoyed a modicum of success with his first single that broke top 40. We went and toured with him. After the dissolution of that band in 2000, I want to say 1 or 2, somewhere around there, we formed this company. And one of our biggest and long-standing clients was the Cincinnati Reds. And we've been with them for about just over 20 years now. And we do about 20, maybe 25 concerts inside the ballpark before homestand weekend games in a given season. And we also do their larger events, opening day out on Joe Nuxall. We manage that main stage, and we also do Reds Fest, both stages in the convention center. And then on occasion, some of their, they have a lot of corporate suites. I've done a couple of shows for their corporate interest as well. And then we do festival season, that kind of thing. So we've been together for quite a while and are very fortunate and lucky to have some of the clients that we do. We've actually also done sound for so many local bands in our fan zone. They're all bands that cycle around the Cincinnati circuit and eventually find the ballpark. And it's a fun show for a local band to play because you're right there in the ballpark. You've got a great audience, and we usually get them to kind of froth up the audience before the first pitch. And it's a great thing that they're doing down there at the ballpark.
Well, that sounds outstanding, and it sounds like a challenge too to do all those events and that many in a year. It sounds like a bunch of work.
It is. But at this point in the game, we've kind of streamlined it. After 20 years, you've worked out the kinks, and at this point, we've got a pretty smooth operation down there.
And you've done a lot of work with 80s singers, some of the popular singers from the 80s and things like that over the years as well. You want to hit on that for just a moment, and then we'll get into the finality of this thing today?
Sure. So around 2008, coincidentally, I met Philip Myers along with Alex and Robert, who were also part of the production team, for Mind Ignition. And Philip was brought in as a producer for Reds Fest. And it just so happened to be that we found out that he was an artist as well. And Philip has a very impressive resume. He's sung for 4 of the 5 living presidents. He toured in support of Elton John. He's performed just a countless lists: Celine Dion, Kenny Rogers, Willie Nelson, Garth Brooks. So Philip in the 80s was a staff writer for RCA Records. So he was in the studio. So when Dolly Parton or Garth Brooks would come in to do their album, they would work with Philip. Fast forward several years later, he has turned his enterprise into customized corporate shows. And often in these shows, we will bring in many of these singers from iconic bands of the 80s. So I've been fortunate to perform with the singers of Toto, Journey, Kansas, Tommy Two-Tone, Fabulous Thunderbirds, performed with CeeLo Green, and the list goes on. And for many of these artists, like I'd mentioned earlier, they're 20 years my senior. They were guys I was listening to when I was a teenager. And to fast forward 30 years later, imagining that I would be on stage performing with them is in many ways unbelievable. We just finished a show in New York this past weekend with Kevin Chalfant, who was the first singer to replace Steve Perry. And we also performed with Alyssa Crosby, who was on last season's The Voice, for an organization called Sock Out Cancer that kind of acts like the Ronald McDonald House, right? So if you have a child or someone that's going through cancer treatment, they will step in and help with so many of those costs that people don't realize are going to hit them. So it's a truly wonderful organization that's headed by Bruce Boyer, a friend of mine who has been very successful in his career endeavors, and now is taking this on as kind of his philanthropic mission. So
right. You mentioned Kevin there. I've done several shows with Kevin. What a nice guy. What a great guy to work with.
He's such a wonderful human being.
Yes.
And it's so heartening to meet and perform with these people and find out that they're still humble and approachable. There's only been, I would say in my career, 1 or 2 that have been standoffish and not interested in interacting with you. And but for the most part, they're all wonderful. And it's such a good feeling to meet them and perform, because it's, it can be nerve-wracking. We're coming into a show where they're singing the songs that they've done for 30 plus years. And for us, it's a show that we have to bring up to speed quickly and sell to the audience as if we'd played it 400 times. So it's already kind of nerve-wracking. And when you're able to be kind of comforted by the singer who's quarterbacking the stage and have them say, "Sounds great. You guys are great. We're going to have a lot of fun." It just kind of puts you at ease. So I'm grateful that my experience has been one where I've met these people and find out that they're good people as well as great
Absolutely. And,
musicians.
I think they like to be around like-minded people too. I think that's a part of that. When they've been on the road so many years and all that, there's so many people that just want that grab and grin picture or whatever, but they like to sit
Right.
backstage and talk to somebody who loves music. And I've found that too. Very few of them have egos. And when you get 30 years in the business, if you've got an ego that big, you're probably not going to be real successful because it's
Yeah.
just not going to happen.
Yeah, and there's typically some other wiring that's not right. If that's what I think, good people are good people, and you learn it in childhood. You know,
Amen to that, Billy. Hey, real quick, you've got some releases coming out. You want to mention those fast if we can?
Absolutely. So my other band project is called McCarthy Union. We released an album in 2018 that generated some steam, and a couple of the singles were used in various marketing campaigns as well as 700. And we got good support from that. And we have just, we were working on the second one through the COVID madness, which was kind of a start and stop process at that time. And we finally pulled the strings together and completed most of the album. So I think we're going to be releasing songs as singles as opposed to on an entire album work. Although we may repackage it, we still have to cross that bridge. But we have 2 singles that we've gone through the publishing and all the red tape that goes along with that. And I'm sure other musicians who have original material can attest to the daunting task of just getting something published and commercially viable. But we'll be releasing It's Time to Rock probably in the next couple of weeks. So I'll be pushing it out through social media and some other sources and making it available for people.
And on the screen, guys, we have, if you have not followed the Billy Rock Band yet, follow them on Facebook at the Billy Rock Band or on the web at www.thebillyrockband.com. And you'll have those releases out on there, I'm sure, and links to them and where they can get them and all that stuff, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
Perfect.
Package in that room.
Well, all I can say is if you've never seen the Billy Rock Band, I'm going to encourage you, if you're watching this show today, to put it on your list of go-tos because these guys, I mean, Billy, you've got Alex, you've got Christian. They do a fantastic job of filling the room with wonderful warm sound. And Chad, if they're local, doing the sound, does an impeccable job of making you sound wonderful out there to the room.
Yeah, he's great.
And can't encourage it enough to get folks out there and make it happen and go see these guys because they're just a stellar bunch of musicians. And I think you've learned if you watch today, Billy's one of those guys I look up to because he has the right attitude and the right stage charisma and such as he's playing his songs. And he interacts so well with everybody in the room. So, Billy, I can't thank you enough for being with me today.
Thank you, Scott.
Man.
And I want to just say this real quick before I go. I know I've mentioned it before, but I want to just thank you again for what a strong voice you've been in our town, Scott. I know what you do is often a thankless job, and it's a lot of work behind the scenes that people never hear about or never know about. And your contribution to our music scene and musicians in this town can never be repaid. And it is greatly appreciated by me and so many musicians in this town. And we just want to collectively thank you for taking up the spear and keeping this on the front of people's minds.
Thank you, my friend. I appreciate you. And that is nice to hear from you because like I said, I look up to you so much in your attitude and your level of, I guess I'm at a lack of words, but your level of perfection and professionalism is a good term for it. And it's so good. I have one last question before we go.
Absolutely.
And we've got 30 seconds to get it in here. We're running long. So it is this. If you could take the stage with anyone, past or present, who would you take the stage with on your bucket list of, I want to play with this person?
Wow. Zeppelin was such a huge influence in my childhood that carried into adulthood and made its way into our show. I would say, even if I could just drum with him, probably Robert Plant from Zeppelin, or if I could switch and either just play drums or sing. I to be on stage with Zeppelin would probably be the coup de grace for me.
Zeppelin it is.
Yes,
well,
sir.
Ladies and gents, we have been on today with Billy McCarthy from the Billy Rock Band and many other projects and such. Follow them, if you will, on the Book of Face at the Billy Rock Band and on the web at thebillyrockband.com. And stay up on these guys and what they're doing, because they're a force in the Cincinnati music scene. And Billy, I love the way you get out and support other musicians as well and other projects. And that's what it's all about. So we've had a great conversation with you today. I learned a lot, and I can't wait to see you play again real soon, buddy.
Thank you so much, Scott. Love you guys. Be well.
All right. Stay with me, Billy, until we shut her down here. Thank you, folks, for being with us. Join us tomorrow live at 5 for Who's Playing Out. It's brought to you by our friends at Heather's in Springboro, and we'll bring you the best musicians and venues and where they're playing all week long in the Tri-State. See you then.